Hello, thank you for joining me, and today I will be talking about how to make from our flat picture a more realistic three-dimensional image. Here on our example page we have groups of objects, and some objects are covered by the other objects. For example, these mushrooms cover the lower part of the building, and this building partly covers the farthest building. So the simplest way is, when we color the building, make this part between this building and this building, between these objects, a little bit darker. And the same way, the area of the building behind the mushrooms, also to make it a little bit darker. For example, I have colored page from the Game of Thrones coloring book, and here I have leaves and the trunk of the tree, and you could see that I added dark brown under all the leaves, and in this way all my leaves looks more three-dimensional, so you could see that the tree is in the background. The other way is to use shading. What does it mean? When we color our objects, for example this tower, if I simply cover all the walls with one color without any gradient or shading, it will definitely look flat and unrealistic. So we need to add lights and shades to our picture. And for doing this, we need to understand how to shade basic forms. We have 4 basic forms. It's a sphere, it's a cone, it's a cylinder, and it's a cube. I hope that I pronounce it correctly. And every object around us could be seen as a sum of these simplest shapes and spheres. So we have here we have very flat shapes, and we need to make them to look three-dimensional. When I start to work on every coloring page, I just imagine where will be the source of the light. And here my rays of light will be like this, like this. So on each object we will have a highlight, a light, a mid-tone, core shadow, a reflected highlight, and cast shadow. So this is the lightest part, where the ray of light meets the surface of our sphere. So we have a violet sphere. Here is the lightest part. Maybe I'll do it a little bit closer. This is the highlight area. This is the light area. And here we will have a mid-tone. Just little bit of shading. Here's another area of the mid-tone. And here is the core shadow, the darkest part, where we don't have any light. The core shadow, and here we have a reflected highlight, because when we have our sphere on some surface, we have a reflected rays of lights from this surface. So here we have a reflected highlight, and it's quite similar to the mid-tone. So, already not so flat. The area of the highlight depends from the material from which the object is made. For example, here we have a matte polystyrol sphere, and here we have a glassy shadows, and the highlight is larger and more defined. So here is the difference. So let's start to work on the cone. Again, we have an area of the highlight, the light, mid-tone, and the core shadow. Just like this, and the reflected highlight. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The cylinder. finally the coup. Okay. And now we need to draw our cast shadow. Here is the cast shadow for the sphere. Here we have the occlusion shadow, and this is the darkest part. And using shadows, we could also indicate in which time we have our picture. For example, at 12 o'clock at midday, we have a very crisp, very precise and very short shadows, just like this. And at the dawn or at the dusk, the shadows are longer and more smooth. If we have clouds on our sky, the shadows also will be smooth. And if we have sun, so more straight lines, straight borders. Okay, this is the simplest way to draw shadows, but sometimes we have not only the surface on which stand our object, but also we have something behind our object, just like this. here we have the light. So the shadow will cover partly the background. And partly the wall behind. So don't forget to add the shadows when you draw and color the groups of objects. Our next question is which colors need I use to draw these shadows? For example, I have a green surface. The cast shadow itself doesn't have own color. The color of the cast shadow defines by the color of the surface, by the color of the object, and also by the color of the light. What does it mean? Probably you know that we have cold and warm tones of each color. So if we have a warm light, for example sun or a lamp, something like this, so if the light is warm, the shadow will be in cold colors. So I will use in this way maybe a darker part of the color of the surface. In my way it will be dark green and some gray or black, and the color of the cast shadow will be the mix of the dark green and cold gray. And if our light is cold, for example from the moon, so the color of the cast shadow will be in warm tones. So I will be using, for example, warm brown. So you just need to remember warm light, cold shadow, and vice versa. And the last moment, that we also have some reflects of the color of this surface on our object. So we need to add some greens to our sphere. And in this way your drawing, your coloring will be looking more professional and more realistic. I hope that this short video was useful for you. Now I'll try to show this on my coloring picture and quickly color some basic shapes. Leave me a comment about my video, please, and stay with me for the next videos. Happy coloring to all of you. Bye bye.